This is Netscape, what Netscape was to the internet. It didn't invent the internet. It simply changed how people interacted with it. And when you change how people interact with it and you make it easier to interact with, then more people experience it.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Accolite Podcast, Trailblazers, the Generative AI Outlook. I'm your host, Nij Chawla, and I lead global marketing and strategy at Accolite. Today marks a first for us. I've got not just one leader, I've got two distinguished leaders with me. I've got Davies, Chief Data Officer at Yum Brand, and I've got Nij Chawla, President of Data and AI, Digital Solutions, and the CTO Office at Accolite. In this episode, we'll dive into their unique journeys, discuss the role of generative AI in their businesses, and how it kind of influences the various sectors they play in. Cameron, Nij, it's such a pleasure to have both of you here. I'm super excited to learn from you today. So let's set the stage here a bit. So to kick things off, I would love for each of you to share a bit of an overview of your responsibilities in your respective organizations, how they relate to AI and generative AI. So maybe Cameron, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thanks. Happy to be here. I appreciate you guys having us today. I look after all things kind of data and analytics at Yum at the corporate center. Just to put everything in perspective for everybody, Yum is the world's largest restaurant brand. We host brands such as Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC, and our newest up-and-coming brand, Habit Burger. We operate in 155 different countries across the world and do system sales almost north of $60 billion. So we're a pretty good sized organization. We're also very distributed in how we work, with about 2% of our stores being owned by Yum itself. That becomes important as we think about my role, and I look after really three things at the corporate center. One is what we call our data operations pillar, typical data engineering, BI, business insights, data services, which is a lot of internal data and analytics consulting, and then data products, which is AI at scale. How do we take all types of AI, machine learning, and actually integrate it into both our cast member, our team member experiences at the restaurants? Sorry, a little Disney slipped out there for a moment with cast member, and then as well as put it in front of our customers to kind of surprise and delight them so they have great experiences and want to come back and experience our brands.
Yeah, very cool. Obviously, a variety of different brands underneath the portfolio, and each one has its kind of unique, probably characteristics and unique end persona that you deal with. So it'll be cool to dive into a bit of that. Nij, how about you?
Cameron, all that food talk has gotten me hungry. I'm Nij. I joined Accolite about a year ago as president, leading three areas for us. Data and AI is our first area. Number two is our CTO office. And number three are the industry domain COEs, responsible for building repeatable offerings for our customers. I've been blessed to be at the forefront of many technology waves in my career, most recently at the heart of a ton of innovation in AI the last 9 years. And given my prior life in AI, I was asked by the business to lead data engineering, AI ML, as well as build out a new center of excellence focused on generative AI. I now like to joke, you can't really spell Accolite without AI. Data, AI, and cloud are at the very heart of what we do and where we're going. We're really building on top of our 16 amazing years of core digital engineering DNA, as well as cloud modernization. And all of this is really coupled with near 100% customer success. Through this AI COE, we're leading with core Gen AI offerings across various industries, various processes. It's really a blend of where Gen AI can be applied, and at times traditional machine learning as well in concert. I'm blessed to be at the heart of all of this innovation, and more importantly, working with some of the brightest minds in the industry at Accolite in my role.
Awesome. So you can't spell Accolite without AI. I'm going to keep that for my marketing playbook. That's great. So let's talk about perspective. So you guys have different perspectives. So Cameron, you lead a corporate function, and Nij, you lead a practice, and you're the president, and you got your role obviously around the technology services side. So each one of you has a different perspective and a vantage point in regards to probably how generative AI is evolving in your business and what the kind of critical success factors are. Cameron, you want to talk about it from your perspective in your organization?
Certainly. By the way, Nij, you can't spell pizza without AI either, but I'll let you guys.
I love that. I love it.
So I think Gen AI is interesting. Is it starting to evolve? And from my perspective, what we're going to see is it's going to change the nature of how we interact with data first and foremost. And there's a lot of use cases that happen with it. And this analogy actually comes from a really good friend of mine and Nij's, Manoj Saxena. And I love the way Manoj thinks about it or explains it. He's like, this is Netscape, what Netscape was to the internet. It didn't invent the internet. It simply changed how people interacted with it. And when you change how people interact with it and you make it easier to interact with, then more people experience it. And as more people experience it, people create more content for it. And as people create more content for it, the more people want to experience it. And it's a great virtuous cycle. And I think that's what we're saying. God bless Chat GPT and the money they invested in thinking about LLMs and all of those other types of things, at least bring it back to the forefront of the conversation. But for us, first and foremost, it always will continue to be about the business problem. And Gen AI will give us an idea of the ability to kind of meet some business problems in a different way than we have in the past. Around things like knowledge management, we're already seeing that. You're already seeing people use it in drive-throughs as interactive ways to make orders. You're already seeing people talk about it in the way we train people in the restaurant or how we work with it. So I think we're just starting to scratch the surface to start to understand where the business cases will play out over time. But I think all of us are very excited about the potential of it. And not just Gen AI, quite candidly, but we've been pushing, we need to do more with ML and AI, period, across space. And we believe at Yum, we've made some serious investments in our data over the years. We've made some acquisition investments. So we think we're set up to do a lot in this space in a pretty good way. So a lot of genuine excitement on our side with it.
I like how you framed that. It feels like you were going down the path of the generative AI piece, especially on the accessibility side, right? It became accessible to the world. Therefore, we had an amazing hockey stick in regards to the results of content creation, the amount of platforms, the amount of users involved. And that's a very interesting perspective to look at it. And do you think that with your comment around ML, can it have that same concept where more people have access to it and more usage will come on the ML side as well?
I think it will. Absolutely. It's going to make it easier to write it. We talked about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it demystifies it, for the lack of a better term. And it brings it to the forefront like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. I get why I would want to do something like this. Because you see in something like even ChatGPT 3.5 or DALL-E, people going, oh, I get how you might use something like this, where if it's just a straight forecast or there's real hardcore pricing optimization, sometimes that's just tough for people to wrap their heads around. But when you create it in a way that brings it to the forefront, people are like, oh, wow, that's actually real. I get the pragmatic use for it. That then starts to open up minds and thoughts about how you can do other things. And then it'll be our job to say, okay, what is the right tool to apply it? Right? Maybe it doesn't always have to be that type of AI. Maybe it's another type of AI. Maybe it's other type of ML that actually solves it in a more efficient way, but it will open up the door.
I agree. Cameron, if I may just add to your AI ML analogy as well. I mean, 8-9 years ago, when we were starting to innovate tremendously in the classical or what we call traditional AI, there was a lot of building out models, and that was not easy. Building out vision services. Today, you've got 200 churn prediction models, 500 vision services, and the numbers just keep increasing every day. But still, piecing all of those solutions together is a bit of a task. Applying it with your business data, making sense of the predictions and saying, no, these don't make sense. Let's tweak the model, put it back into production. It's still a very large, complicated cycle. I think Gen AI has really accelerated all of that, to your point, in terms of how easy it is in many ways to adopt it. It's just, that's very much in line with your hockey stick analogy in terms of what's happening. From my take, Manoj, to the same question on why Gen AI is critical for success, my take is everybody just needs to put to the side all this buzz. Gen AI is here to stay. Simply put, we need to embrace it or be swept by it. My guidance is don't make your business irrelevant by ignoring it. We're currently going through the classic motions of any hype cycle. We started with hype, it's leading to FUD, going to get to reality, and there will be massive value realization. I believe every process in every industry will realize billions of dollars of productivity gains, maybe even more than that. I've seen numbers that call out trillions. That might be a bit much. But while everybody is scared about jobs being cut, my view is quite the opposite. I think there will be a massive productivity acceleration of epic proportions over the next few years, along the lines of something we haven't seen before. Think about how we went from logarithmic tables to calculator, from paper number crunching to Excel spreadsheets, horse and cart to cars, cars to planes, planes to rockets. Massive shifts in how we do things will come about in a similar fashion. We just aren't even in the first full innings yet of this 9 innings journey. Call center logs will be automatically processed. Analytics will be run on those very calls and client interactions. Medical transcripts will be processed. Intelligent chatbots will preempt a customer's context and intent. How many people have told you that is a long standing, decades old problem? What does my customer really want? Similarly, millions of claims will be processed through automation in minutes, proposals written in seconds, test cases automated. The list just goes on and on. But if you don't change, you'll not just be left behind, you could be wiped out. There are use cases coming that we cannot even fathom today. So very excited about the space and where it's going.
I'm going to keep with you, Nij, for a second. You mentioned a few use cases across sectors. Obviously, Accolite plays in a variety of sectors: tech, banking, telco, healthcare. Could you name? You mentioned a couple. What are your favorite 2 or 3 use cases that you think are relevant in these sectors that your area, Accolite, your CTO office are looking at and playing in?
Yeah. Besides the Gen AI COE, I also have the charter, as I mentioned, of industry COEs that drive repeatable offerings for the broader market in digital services. This talented group of folks they've been doing research and applying 20 to 25 years in their respective industries to drive the type of value creation that will come from using Gen AI. So we've been testing these hypotheses with prototypes we've built as part of that COE, as well as the Gen AI COE. We've run these by some world-class strategy consulting firms. And what we've been told is we're onto some pretty unique capabilities and offerings. Manoj, to your question, I lump these broadly into 2 buckets of industry offerings. One is horizontal, that'll apply cross-cutting to many industries. The second group is vertical. So in horizontal, just in software development alone, I believe development roadmaps are about to be massively accelerated. You know, when business keeps hammering on IT, saying, accelerate my roadmap, that's what's going to happen in a very, very big way. Productivity will increase in a huge way. Testing will be automated. Requirements will be written much faster. At Accolite, we have some offerings we have driven along the lines of legacy code modernization. You're sitting on systems that nobody wants to touch. Massive acceleration of software quality automation, taking code coverage to maybe tiny numbers to near 100%. Technical debt retirement, chatting with your enterprise data to make sense of it across various silos, chatting with your documentation. These are just some of the examples. We have a lot more, and each is backed by a working prototype. Come talk to us to see how this group of horizontal use cases will apply to your world, your processes, and your code. On the vertical side, applicable to most industries is the area of contact center. Think reduction in call center costs, average handle time, call volume. Then there are intelligent assistants that will help in commerce journeys, help in support journeys such as L1, L2 support. In telco, some of them are automated proposal generation. Think weeks of proposal writing shrunk down into seconds. Subscription renewals is something that applies to not just telecom, but elsewhere, and so on. And then in banking and financial services, some offerings that we've driven have to do with compliance advisors on the go. It's another long-standing problem. Automated cash flow forecasting, product or investment recommenders, and other low-code, no-code type use cases as well, powered by AI/ML as well as Gen AI. These are just some that I'm sharing, but we have a plethora. Would love to invite you to come speak with our specialists and see some of these prototypes in live action.
I don't think we even know all the use cases yet. I think that's, as you rattled off a long set of them, I saw one recently I hadn't thought of, which is they're using Gen AI for call centers. You say, okay, no. One of their biggest problems in call centers is accents. And so they're creating a Gen AI. It's a small startup that's done it, created its Gen AI that if I have let's say a Polynesian accent, I can speak in the AI and the AI will come back and make it any accent you want. American, British. In fact, it can be adapted to the person who's calling. So that's the accent you hear. And I'd never even thought about that as a use case, but its ability to recognize, quickly translate, and then change the inflections back. So it still sounds like a real person's talking to me. And it is a real person talking to me, but the AI is creating a different voice as I go. And be like, okay, now, as long as you can speak English, you can speak to an English country, or as long as you can speak Spanish, you can speak to a Spanish country. It doesn't matter that your accent's not great because it will go through that and make it understandable, which is, I didn't realize one of their biggest challenges in hiring in some of these international call centers is that not only do you have to be proficient in the language, but you have to be understandable enough, and they have scores to that. And I think that's just one example. I don't know if anybody else maybe listening to this went like, oh yeah, of course I thought about that. But I remember the first time I saw it a couple of weeks ago, like, oh, what a brilliant idea that does like require a ton of investment, right? It just is a really practical, thoughtful, out of the box way to solve a real world problem. And I think that's what we're going to start to see with this is more and more of those things going, look, we don't have to solve world hunger with this out of the gate. Right? There's enough really solid integral business cases we can go get right now that the technology can solve at scale in an economical way. It's what I'm most excited about.
Spot on, Cameron.
Right. That's a wonderful real life use case, and I could also see it in the areas of like say mental health counseling, for example. Right, regardless of the accent, the language, you can communicate and get services from whoever around the world if you chose to. You gave a very customer experience specific example, and to Nij's point, you talked about this concept of product roadmap acceleration rather than seeing this as always like a cost thing. And I was listening to a podcast. It was the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, was on it. Obviously, he is right embedded into anything AI related. He's probably taking more advantage of it than anyone at this point. But he talked about this concept of similar to you, like this could actually accelerate. And don't look at this as like cost savings. Like humans will always continue to come up with big ideas. We never run out of big ideas, right?
Exactly.
And the last 10,000 years have shown that. So why are we getting scared of this and look at it as an accelerator for new sets of ideas and new opportunities? And you said that in your relationship point. And so back to you, Cameron. Could you share, obviously you've got a multi-brand business, multi-billion-dollar company. What are your specifics in regards to examples that you guys are thinking about in DX and maybe even in the QSR space? Can you share some of those?
I think specifically in our industry, we're going to see it happen in a couple of different ways. And you've already seen a lot of announcements, a lot of people talking about this. First of all, back a counter. How our team members interact with information and data management is going to change. That ability to say, how do I do this thing? It cuts down on training time in natural language. Ask a question. This thing just happened. What do I do? I can't find my RGM, or maybe the RGM is like, who am I supposed to call? You're going to see that happen. You're going to see it in back of house applications, whether it's any kind of knowledge management, when you've got a lot of policies and procedures and it's hard to navigate across those. And so you're going to see, you've already heard a lot of QSRs and restaurants talking about how you do that back of house to make those operations more efficient and make it an easier experience. Why don't we start there, right? And to that end, you're seeing a lot of talk about ordering in the drive-through. There's a lot to get it right. It's really interesting if you watch how people react to that who are trying to order with it. It's actually kind of amusing, but I think there's applications there, customer facing, and how it creates how it takes this idea of we've been doing for a while. Nij talked about customer segmentation, getting the right offer and the right message to the right person, but hyper scaling, hyper personalizing that. There's always been a bottleneck around creative. Like, how do you do that? Like, even if you've ever tried to go test something in an AB or an armed bandit, you're like, all right, I got to go create enough creative to do that in a non-digital world where that can happen. If I can trust and put bounds on and let the machine create the creative, all of a sudden my ability to test gets limitless in some ways, and my ability to personalize gets limitless and interesting. I think it will go beyond that. Years ago, IBM was already using Watson to go do recipes and create recipes and come up with interesting ideas. And this was precursors before like LLMs were even a thing, right? Back in, if we give them a birth date of somewhere around the 2015, 16 range. But they, so where is that going to go with even changing how we think about recipes, et cetera? These are the kind of things we're hearing people talk about in our industry, within the restaurant industry, that could be important. But I'm going to guess, if I had to predict, there will be a shiny object stuff that people really care about. That's very front facing. And then there'll be a ton of work on efficiency and knowledge management, because that's like easy use case to get $1 out of.
To the AI powered recipes, I did not particularly care for the bacon in my cocktail. I actually had one of those drinks. But other than that, some of the other stuff was pretty creative.
Yeah, there was some pretty good stuff that came out of there. And it was interesting. It's stuff you wouldn't have thought put together. But I'm sure there's the good analogy, right? If you stop for a minute, the machine can chemically decide what it thinks should go together and come up with ideas. And it can hallucinate, because that's what it's designed to do. But until you actually, because taste is so subjective, right? And this is maybe the fair work. We'll see what we're willing to automate and let decisions we let just the machine make, versus where we let the machine be our apprentice. Those will be the interesting use cases, I think, to play out over time, especially as we learn what's really ready for prime time instead of good and bad hallucinations versus what's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, recommendation versus decision. Yeah, that's very interesting. So we've talked a bit about like the kind of the overview where GenAI is heading. We talked about use cases, but let's talk about foundations for a second, Nij. Yours try to set up a practice at Accolite. It takes a lot to set up a practice from the ground up. Maybe you could talk about what are the different cross-department functions? How are they working together? What are the things that you're implementing to get this practice up and going? Why I'm asking this is like, as people are starting to think about this in their roles and their companies, maybe they could kind of glean some thoughts from your perspective around this.
Sure, Manoj. At Accolite, we believe GenAI is here to stay in a very big way. And it's not just a fad, unlike some of the other technologies. Recently, I won't take names, where it felt like hammer was constantly looking for a nail. To realize its full potential, we created a dedicated center of excellence for GenAI. This COE, we've shaped it as cross-company, cross-industry, and cross-functions. And I'm blessed to be working with very talented folks from around the company and leading it. We got a head start to many others in the industry, and we're studying this space, especially the transformer architecture and whatnot, even before it exploded. There are really 4 SWAT teams we've built in this COE. SWAT 1 is all about keeping up with what's changing and changing really fast in the technology landscape. There feels like an LLM coming out every 2 hours. So what's changing daily? What tests should be run? How do we keep running mini prototypes and capture those learnings? That's SWAT 1. SWAT 2 is the operational rollout. That's taking everything coming from SWAT 1, running their own prototypes and rolling it out, all these advancements across the company in a very methodical fashion. We're training about 200 plus engineers per month today. SWAT 3 is all about reaching out to the Yum brands and other clients and taking our learnings and go to market. We're creating market-facing offerings that focus on only one thing, which is how do we create business value for our customers? Enough tire kicking. It's all about what is the business value? What is the KPI we need to deliver for our customers? And we've taken a very unique build it first and then create the PowerPoint that goes with it, the marketing content approach, unlike many other companies that play in this space. That's SWAT 3. SWAT 4 is all about how do we make sure we don't get Accolite or our customers on the front page of Wall Street Journal. It's very serious, and we want to make sure security, privacy, and the legal angles are well taken care of, keeping our clients' data and their code safe. So this 4 SWAT approach has given us focus and attention and allows us to attack the space very methodically, but with speed.
And what types of investments are you making in terms of, you mentioned you're training 200 engineers a month. How do you upskill 200 engineers a month so that they learn generative AI and all the various practices and models at the same time to be efficient in this?
I think to Cameron's earlier point, there's quite a bit of a secret sauce in terms of how we're going about this, but I'll just speak at a broad brush level. There's two big ways we're going about this. One is innovation, hands-on prototypes, and number two is the operational rollout. So from the innovation aspects, is really we attacked it in a two-phased approach. Approach one was all about SDLC, software development lifecycle productivity gains. And phase two in this was all about process efficiency gains and the creation of those offerings that will resonate with our customers in their specific industries, in their specific processes. And today we sit on top of 22 prototypes. So it's less PowerPoint, more code, because we know customers like Cameron will tell me, show me, and they'll pull in their best and brightest, they'll pull their tech leads, and we want to make sure we have working prototypes to show them. And that's how we like to play in this space. This has allowed our teams to get their hands dirty and remove this apprehension away, both for us and for our customers. The second part on the operational rollout, we're really training close to 200 engineers per month, which is sizable given our company size. And we're staying abreast of all the changes. And we're constantly continuing to research these new technologies coming out of the hyperscalers, as well as in open source. So just staying on top of both of these pillars as we sort of roll this out to upskill our teams.
Yeah, thank you. Cameron, you want to add anything in regards to, like, you're looking at it from a corporate perspective, very focused on data? Like, how are you upskilling your team to prepare for generative AI?
Yeah, honestly, we're not. And I'll say this, I believe there's a lot of talk about it. I've got a pretty good stable of data engineers, ML ops engineers, data scientists, computer science, UI, UX folks. We've got a good set of folks that are doing it. I don't fundamentally believe that the skill sets to do Gen AI at scale are different from doing any other kind of AI at scale. I don't know, some people, not everybody will agree with me, but I'm fundamentally there, because a lot of us aren't going to go out and be writing our own LLMs. And we're going to be using partners. We're going to be using separate tools. We'll be using hyperscalers. And I think this is one of the things we're all going to have to figure out. Like, if I had told you, maybe you not, I'm old enough to remember this, Nij is, if I told you 25 years ago, you're going to pay $1,500 for this thing, and it's going to cost you probably for your family $300 to $400 a month, you would have said, I'd lost my mind. Like, all right, your cell phone is going to cost you about $1,800. Like, no, wait a minute. That's when it fit in my car. No. Like, when I was still holding a Motorola Razr in my hand, like, no. Wait, what? How much? And then how much am I going to pay for a monthly service? Like, well, how many free minutes do I get? Like, those were the questions we asked. Is that unlimited texting? Like, those were the kind of questions we asked, because that was the experience we lived and envisioned. Nobody's asking right now, like, well, if you want to scale one of these things, like, okay, I don't have my own iron anymore. Where does it get? Like, what's the business model look like? If I'm going to deploy it at a location, is it a straight API call? Well, what's my service like? Do I need to deploy something at the edge? What is the compute to do something like this if it's not finely tuned? Like, well, what's the expense of it being finely tuned versus not finely tuned? And how much money can I waste versus how much I can gain? These are all questions that we're all sort of starting to figure out now. And right now, to Nij's point, everybody's so excited about it. Oh, look, nobody can get left behind. We got to go. I joke, this is remembering when trying to ask people what color their blockchain was. Right? Like, I don't even need to know what it is. Right?
Pink.
Pink. Like, I just have to have one. But Nij, you have a dog named Truffle. Of course yours was pink. But I think we're going to learn there. So I'm not doing anything. Well, we're talking about how we organize around it, how we make sure that we've got the right investments in the right place. But yeah, in terms of upskilling and this whole idea of prompt engineers, we'll see how that plays out over time and what that really means. But for right now, we've got some really solid folks that are already spinning up use cases. We're picking our partners thoughtfully. We're deciding whether you rent versus where you own, all those things. And for us, we have a very clear way we think about it. We look about it in terms of intellectual property, what people bring to the table versus what we can bring to the table versus what we think we need to own over time. Cost out of the gate, speed, because opportunity costs are real. and then where it fits in our overall strategic platform. Because for us, especially as a large franchisor, we really care about how everything in the system works and fits together, and the value we can give back to our franchisees because of that. So we look at all those filters, and in some cases, like, you know what, that's something we should definitely just rent, versus, ooh, that's something that we need to own, versus this is something we probably need to partner with somebody to own. And so we always look at that space now and try to make those decisions. And quite candidly, we're looking at all three even in this space.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I think well said, Cameron. And what we're experiencing is there's all this buzz about, what do you mean it can actually produce code for me? It can actually produce test cases for me? What we're finding is the industry stats are only 1 in 4. So about 26% of the code that's auto-generated is being accepted by very skilled engineers. 74% is not. So, I mean, that brings in a tremendous amount of expertise that's needed for, why am I accepting this but not that? What about test cases? While some tools are generating these test cases, we're finding that these tools are falling short. So we're bringing in our own innovative methods and our IP to build these kinds of services that our customers are renting, to use your word, in terms of how best to drive software quality automation acceleration using Gen AI tools, plus this innovative set of steps and methods, some prompt engineering and some beyond. So it's just a lot of learnings along the way.
Well, and I think there's a thing that we're all going to have to figure out, and my number one concern off of it, which is one place we have upskilled and put is around taking what was our sort of data governance function and extending it out to include it as kind of our AI, not just our responsible AI, but our responsible AI and ethics function. Because it's, my worry here is what you just said, Nij. People will put a ton of faith in something and they don't really even understand what they're doing. Either because they're being lazy, like we saw with that lawyer example in the airlines, or just using ChatGPT to do his cases and not realizing those weren't real cases, right? That's just lazy. Or when it comes to code generation, stopping and saying, forget all the IP issues and all that stuff, we got to go figure out, like, okay, wait, this is good, but treating it like that kind of that intern. Okay, I had my apprentice or my intern writing the code. I wouldn't just go put that code into production without validating it and make sure it's exactly what I needed and editing it. But I worry that we can say, hey, now everybody can be a coder. We can have citizen coders, just have access to this and go. We all know there's more to it. And so how we use the tool and how we partner with folks to help put the right boundaries around those things, because we don't even know the bad things that can happen yet. We don't know the good things that can happen yet. We talked about that. We also don't know all the bad things that can happen yet.
Completely agree.
Very interesting. I'm going to actually just jump through a couple of questions because you guys have had some really great discussion here already. So let's add some value. Like, you guys have been around for 200 years each. Only kidding, guys. See if you're still awake here. But I'd love for you guys to give some insight into, like, you guys have amazing careers, amazing roles. How does someone aspire to become you and say, I'm starting now, I'm going to be here in 15, 20, 25 years? Like, how do you aspire some of these up and coming leaders in your field of data, generative AI technology? Maybe you could give some clear advice as we kind of end here. Cameron, you want to take it for a shot?
Sure. I think more and more, this has always been the case, and Gen AI is going to continue to make it that the case, which is the people who get really successful over time will be, you don't have to be the people who can actually code it for the rest of your life. Maybe you want to be one of those people. We're getting to the point where it's getting easier and easier to find solutions. What are the right tools? Where I find more and more there's a challenge is people who know how to ask the right questions. Are we making sure we understand why we're solving what we're solving? Are we really solving for the right thing? What will that value look like when it's done? So that's one thing. The second thing is, please don't underestimate the impact of people in this equation. And what I mean by that is, it is really easy to forget that people are really great at intuition and also really great at post hoc rationalization, which means I feel first and I reason second. That's how we're built as humans. And the idea of change management and how you bring in changes to how people work. This could be how they view themselves. It could be how they're incentivized, how they view the value of the organization. People who know how to navigate that effectively to make these projects successful. Because if they fail, it's either number one, data, because people also ignore synthetic data or non-synthetic data. These models are both data and computationally hungry. But if you got that right, it will still fail at the change management if you don't get it right. And so people who know how to do both of those things, ask the right questions, get people to the right answers, and then know how to take that and actually move it forward throughout an organization that for right now is still built with very highly intuitive, post hoc rationalized people. That's what's going to work over time. And if you can't do that, you're not going to be successful.
Very interesting perspective. Just thinking about it purely from a marketing lens, I loved how you said, are people asking the right questions? Because I think what this capability now allows you to do, you could just take the answer it gives you and plug it into what you believe is the solution without asking the right question and doing that change management and say, is this the right solution to the question that was being asked in the first place? I think that's where people could become very lazy if not asking the right questions to begin with. So very interesting insight that you've got there. Nij, what are your perspectives on this?
All good points from both of you. I've spent the last 9 years innovating in AI and machine learning and putting solutions into production with my teams. I saw firsthand the fear of how can a machine decide what campaign to run or what to tell my customer or what to put on a landing page and all those kinds of thoughts that come to these groups and leaders. All fair thoughts, fair concerns. My advice to my customers as their trusted advisor is to really keep up with the changing technologies. Iterate fast, but at the end of the day, stop tire kicking and just executing technology projects for the sake of doing technology. Just because the board or the C-suite is asking for these things, keep business value KPIs at the heart of every project. There are times you'll find data is ready, SMEs are not ready. Data and SMEs are ready, but I don't have a good business value fit. So you got to do these 3-4 fitments to before you say, let's go, and have to keep the approach of fail fast, succeed fast in mind. Do quick projects in weeks, not months. Patience is very thin always, especially when you're talking about annual and then quarterly budget cycles. But build a Gen AI and a machine learning roadmap. There's a lot of value to be had here. Take the apprehension away and take this approach. Iterate fast, fail fast, succeed fast. I like what Gartner has to say about this. They're saying, take the following 3-step journey. Number 1 is deliver quick wins. Then get to differentiated use cases, followed by number 3, drive transformational initiatives. Crawl, walk, run. My guidance when selecting your partner, I think, Cameron, you mentioned it 2-3 times. You might be building, you might be renting, or you might just build it with a partner, I tell my customers, stay grounded, ignore the noise, make sure you're taking a seeing is believing approach by stopping the tire kicking. Pick hard problems, run mini projects though, mini projects, slivers with your data, with your code, not their sample data, to see a top to bottom cake slice. Think sliver of value approach, like a full top to bottom cake slice. Find a partner who can run a dots versus bubbles exercise for you and help you build a roadmap. And one who will bring more than PowerPoint and Vapor to you. Ask them to show you working prototypes in your space and have that partner execute projects with you, for you, with speed. Overall, zoomed out guidance. Think big because it's here to stay. Act fast, start now, start small. There are times we finish 1 or 2 of these efforts while a customer I met 4 months ago is still thinking about it. It's analysis paralysis. At Accolite, we've gone from this notion of concepts to PowerPoint to prototypes, and now to projects with clients that are delivering value, real value. So we're ready to engage with you. We're ready to engage with other folks in the industry, similar to how we're engaging with some of the biggest brands in Americas, Europe, and India at Accolite.
Awesome, guys. Well, that was jam-packed full of insights and wisdom. And I think in some cases, very foundational in terms of what we all should be thinking about. And in some cases, be kind of weary in terms of like the steps we have to take to get to a much more mature practice around this. And that we're in early stages as well. So, but I would like to say a big thank you to Cameron and Nij for joining us today. sharing their unique insights into the world of technology and today generative AI. And to our listeners, we appreciate your time as always and hope that today's conversation, this one around the Trailblazers and generative AI, enriched your understanding of generative AI. So stay connected with us for more engaging discussion in upcoming episodes. Until next time, I'm Manoj, and this is the Accolite Podcast. Signing off.